Court today cautions the draft opinion is not final, but if the heart of the draft remains the same, it would give states the power to decide the legality of abortion. More than half of the states are likely to quickly ban the medical procedure with trigger laws in place. Omaha's news leader is live with team coverage tonight. Joey Saftrick talks with organizations in support of this draft ruling.
We start, though, with Catherine Garcia live with what a reversal of the 1973 case would mean. Catherine.
Alexandra, David, abortion rights advocates and health clinics like Planned Parenthood stress to Nebraskans abortion is still legal. But if Roe versus Wade is overturned by the Supreme Court, the future of the right to an abortion in Nebraska would be uncertain.
The president and CEO of Planned Parenthood of North Central States reassures everyone people can still get an abortion at one of its clinics.
Planned Parenthood's clinic doors are open today, and they will remain so.
If the Supreme Court overturns Roe versus Wade, she says Planned Parenthood will make sure people still have access to abortion.
It is only an abortion ban for those who lack the means to travel to a state where abortion is safe and accessible.
Nebraska state senators recently rejected a proposal that would have banned abortion statewide if Roe v. Wade is overturned. It's also known as a trigger ban.
It's definitely not preordained what will happen in Nebraska.
ACLU attorney Scout Richter says the state would have the power to ban abortions if the Supreme Court follows through with its draft opinion.
We are calling on our legislators to continue to listen to Nebraskans' calls for abortion access, no matter what the decision is from the Supreme Court.
Some neighboring states, including South Dakota, already have trigger bans in place, so patients there would have to cross state lines to get an abortion. Richter says it's important to note while abortion is legal in Nebraska, there are some limitations.
Nebraska currently has restrictions on minors who are seeking abortion access. They have restrictions on telemedicine.
Now, Planned Parenthood says although abortion is still legal nationwide, it is already planning on ways to pay for people to travel across state lines to get access to an abortion if Roe v. Wade could be overturned. Reporting live, Catherine Garcia, KETV, Newswatch 7.
Catherine, thank you. In Iowa, current law bans an abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy. That would not change if Roe v. Wade is overturned. The Iowa Supreme Court ruled the Iowa Constitution states a woman has a fundamental right to an abortion. Republican lawmakers passed an amendment to change that, but it requires 2 votes in 2 different general assemblies before being put on the ballot in 2024.
We intend to fight that very hard at the ballot.
The Iowa Supreme Court is also expected to rule this summer on a 24-hour abortion waiting period that lawmakers passed in the year 2020.
Almost every day, you'll find people praying outside the Planned Parenthood clinic in Lincoln. While they pray to end abortion, one Omaha nonprofit encourages at-risk pregnant women to consider other options. Joey is live with their message.
Alexandra, the program director of Bethlehem House, says she understands the end of Roe v. Wade likely means they'll have to scale up the services they provide to those mothers. But she says, challenge accepted.
Gina Tomes was surprised by the Supreme Court news.
It caught me a little bit off guard, shocked.
But her mind raced right to the Bethlehem House, where she's program director. They already have a full house and a waiting list for maternity care.
That is where my heart, my gut, and my mind went, was how are we going to be able to keep up with this needed service?
If Roe v. Wade is overturned, Tomes and her executive director, TJ Ernst, expect more people to turn up at their door.
We're already at capacity and serving at capacity, but you start talking about, do we need to grow?
The Omaha organization provides counseling, housing, and financial help for people who are pregnant and at risk. They do not offer birth control or refer abortion services.
We encourage the women to keep their babies. We tell them if they do, here's what we're going to do for them, how we're going to support them once that baby is born.
Outside Planned Parenthood in Lincoln, anti-abortion activists hope an end to abortions in Nebraska is imminent.
God will have answered our prayers if this truly is Roe versus Wade being overturned in June.
While Bethlehem House hopes pregnant people do choose motherhood.
We just believe in life.
If Roe ends, they say conversations about maternity care must be ongoing.
It is okay that we all have different opinions, but we really need to be ready to accommodate these moms.
Bethlehem House just opened 15 new 3-bedroom apartment units. The rent is locked at $580, and the tenants are alumni of their program.